So, good morning. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm thrilled to be taking some time with Montgomery County Council Member at Large, Laurie-Anne Sayles. And I can't thank you enough for taking this time out of your schedule. It is greatly appreciated. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, it's our supreme honor. The members of the Resurrection Baptist Church, as I have mentioned to you before, are really committed to civic engagement, and we've had conversations over the years to make sure that we are prepared as a congregation to participate in election cycles and other modes of civic engagement. This year's upcoming primaries and presidential election are of great importance. So we wanted to make sure that we continue this conversation and actually ramp it up a little bit. So I'm so thrilled that you were able to join us. And thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to sit with us. Um, I would love it if we could start by just allowing you to tell us a little bit about yourself and to certainly expand upon what drew you into a life of civic engagement. I'll even say community service, because I think that's really important, that community aspect, and why civic engagement is so important to you.
Well, thank you for the question and the opportunity. I'm certainly sure that my parents had something to do with it. I think our family are some of our first role models, and my mother was a social worker. She was also the member of a labor union right here in Montgomery County, where she spent over 25 years working with victims of domestic violence and those who were um, struggling with substance abuse. My father, he was in the military. He was in the army. And so, being the youngest of six children, my father and my mother have a funny joke that since he was deployed a lot, he left a souvenir with her every time, and I was the last one. And so, my mother, I saw her almost like a single mom most often. She found refuge in the church. We grew up in the church. They were both Jamaican immigrants. And so it was all about ensuring that we had, you know, the best education possible and also service to our community. And so we spent a lot of time in the church, and I think that influenced my upbringing, the choices that I made over the years. And so even though I grew up in Prince George's County, I raised my family here in Montgomery County. I moved here as a single mom with my daughter and got involved pretty quickly with the PTA and the NAACP Parent Council, quickly elevated to leadership and realized that a lot of the decisions that we were, um, I guess, championing here at home were already being decided during what's happening right now, the 90-day General Assembly session in Annapolis, Maryland, in our state's capital, being decided by the delegates, the senators, and the governors that we elect. And so, not really understanding that um, connection, but it was a moment when we had an opportunity to go with the PTA to Annapolis, and we were talking about construction funds to build our schools. A lot of our children were learning in portables, which I thought was we don't call them portables anymore, but they were not learning in environments conducive to a 21st century learning experience, especially befitting the residents of Montgomery County. And so realizing how important and influential those people were that we sent to Annapolis for 90 days to best make use of our tax dollars, it made me realize how important it was to get involved, understand who was representing me, understanding that they knew my personal challenges and struggles. And so I found refuge in the Democratic Party and got very active as a member of the Montgomery County Young Democrats. Also worked heavily with Organizing for America after the Obama campaign. And from there, I continued on throughout my college career at the University of Maryland College Park. I ended up running for office on campus, although unsuccessfully. I learned early on how incredibly hard that work was, but how incredibly important it was to have a seat at the table when decisions are being made that impacted us, and how important my lived experience is to creating policy solutions that impact everyday working families.
I love that. I love your story all the way back to how you were raised with parents who had wonderful, wonderful hopes for you that you have probably more than fulfilled. And taking that commitment through your college years, your young adult years, you're a mother, and showing that you can be a mom, a parent, and still be really actively engaged. Thank
Mm,
you for sharing that story. That's wonderful.
of course.
So this is an important election cycle, as we mentioned at our outset. All of them are important. This one feels particularly important for a lot of us. There are many critical issues that are impacting our community right in Montgomery County that are under intense consideration, as we know. So why is participation, in your view, why is participation in the primary elections in particular
Mhm.
something that every voter should make a priority?
You know, when I look at the voter rolls and I see the number of independent voters, I see a entire segment of our population that is disengaged and um, uninvolved with selecting the candidate for the general election. It's a missed opportunity. This is an opportunity to put forth the best candidate that reflects our values. And you know, not just because it's a presidential year, but depending on where you live, there's an election happening every year. And being on the city council in Gaithersburg, I learned that very quickly. Local elections are so important. People usually only show up for the presidential election, but the people who are fixing our roads, hiring our police officers, our police chiefs, appointing our judges, I mean, these are the elections that matter. And usually, because Maryland is such a progressive state, our candidates are usually chosen in the primary. And so during the presidential election, we're going to be electing congressional leaders who are going to be making decisions on budgetary items that not only impact our particular community, but across the country and across the world. Those are going to be our representatives. We also have our local leaders who are deciding, you know, how they're going to implement the blueprint that was passed at the state level, who's going to be um, uh, um, educating our students, who's going to be in our classrooms and deciding on the superintendent's vision for the future. The Board of Education has a number of seats that are up for election, which are going to be important. You know, we talked a lot about criminal justice reform and public safety. We also have judges.
Hmm.
The criminal justice system, especially for the African American community, communities of color, we have to pay very close attention to the people we elect to make decisions that we don't follow every day. We may go to the courthouse because we have a ticket, but there are decisions that are being made about criminal investigations that we want to ensure that those judges are vetted properly, understand the community and our community specifically. And so those are just a few of the decisions that are going to be made We have a lot of um, challenges going on outside of this country with several wars that the United States has been supporting because of our allyships with different countries. And those resources, our tax dollars, we have to be involved. I was talking with a veteran yesterday who said he was an independent. I'm having an event in Frederick to meet with veterans, the people who fought for our country but still pay taxes at home, and still deserve the dignity and support when they come back home. And he said he doesn't vote until the general. He's turned off by politics, and it broke my heart. The work that I do to pour over these budgetary items line by line to ensure that, their Veterans Administration would be fully funded, to ensure that our committees, our initiatives to support our minority populations, the resources for our schools, environmental protections. I mean, you have to know who these people are that are making these decisions. It matters so much. It matters if they live in the community. It matters how long they've lived in the community, what their vested interests are in the community, because we're going to be stuck with them for a period of time. So I don't understand how any tax-paying resident, um, especially knowing what our ancestors went through, to take this opportunity for granted, it's disheartening. And so, our churches were the cornerstone of refuge and of promise. I mean, we did souls to the polls. I don't see that very much anymore.
Mhm.
But we knew, our ancestors knew how important democracy is in this country. And so it pains me that people take this opportunity for granted. People are coming to this country just to, losing their lives just for the opportunity to participate in our democracy. And so anyone who's taking it for granted, you know, you cannot complain. You cannot feign ignorance, because it plays out every day, the impact of who we elect. And we have some consequential choices ahead of us in the upcoming election. We cannot sit this one out. We see what's happening with people of color, with affirmative action, the people who sit on our Supreme Court who have lifetime appointments because of the president that we allowed to get in. I am just really concerned about our country. I even encourage the young man to, you still have a few more weeks. You can still, change your party affiliation to be able to vote with a party. It's so important to align with a party. If you want to be independent after the election, but do your research and vote in the primary. It's too important not to ensure that your vote and your voice is heard.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being so adamant and emphatic with your comments there. I think it's so important. I love what you said. It matters. So thank you for making that plain. Um, so we talked a little bit already about being prepared, preparing yourself before you show up to cast that ballot, to cast your vote, whether it's in the primaries or other local elections or in the general presidential election. What are some tips that you might share with voters to best prepare themselves before they arrive to cast their vote?
All right. Research, research, research. I cannot say it enough. There are too many tools at our fingertips, that we cannot go to the polls and be influenced by people shoving things in our faces. We need to ensure that we're doing our research. So many people are now relying on vote by mail, and so they are able to everyone is going to get a sample ballot. And so as you are sitting down after dinner, you're sitting down watching the TV, everyone has their phone in their hand. You could quickly Google a few of the names. A good resource is the League of Women Voters. They include candidates regardless of party affiliation in their um, annual voter guide. It's a comprehensive guide. So even if you just start there, that's one thing. Candidates are vetted. I have done maybe a dozen candidate forums. Some are sparsely attended, some are better attended. We stream them online because we want to lift the veil of obscurity from this experience. We want to engage with voters. We want voters to understand who we are. But Google people's names, go to their websites, ensure that their platforms, their visions, their experience actually aligns with yours and the future direction you want to see this country go in. There's so many news articles that also cover some of these candidates. And so it's really important. The onus is on the voter. You know, we can only do but so much as candidates. And then it's up to the voters to make their best decision, not just for them in this moment, but for the next generation. We are seeing how important these decisions are and the long-term impacts these decisions, these elections have in our country and abroad. Um, those are just a few of the resources, but I think those are, yeah, definitely some of the best if you're, especially if you're, affiliated with a party, it's easy to vote along party lines. And, make this a family activity, get the
Mhm.
children involved, make the children do the research and tell you the pros and cons of why this person would be or wouldn't be the best person to represent them. Get grandma back to the table, get your aunties, your siblings. We do this as a family event. I'm with my sisters and my niece. We all get our ballots and we start going through the candidates, the voter guides, and we start asking questions about the decisions these people make, anything in the headlines. It's an activity and it should be an important, intentional and a regular activity because as I said, these elections happen every year, and they are always consequential.
Absolutely. I love the things that you shared. And you're absolutely right. If you are affiliated with a party, it can be very easy to vote along party lines. But going that step further and doing your research, involving your family, getting your child to learn from grandma who does remember previous chapters and sacrifices that were made, I think that's amazing. So thank you for sharing all of that. You've been so generous with your time. I'm going to make your next question our last question, although it's very tempting to keep going. This is a great conversation. But just bringing it back to the personal again, what have been, or what has been, if you want to name one, some or one of your brightest moments as you have served Montgomery County in your capacity?
Oh my goodness. It's not lost on me that I have won a historic election to represent over 1 million residents, four of the most diverse cities in the country, the biotech corridor of the region, um, uh, over 19 municipalities and taxing districts, $6.5 billion budget. Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined this moment. And so it was very important for me not to waste this moment and to ensure that I made an impact immediately. And I think it's so important we started off with how I was inspired and influenced. And it was, my mentors of my parents, the mentors of the people that came before me on the county council. And I wanted to ensure that I could also mentor the next generation and encourage and influence the next generation of public policymakers at the local level. And so I'm so excited to have the Smart Youth Advisory Council. This coming Monday, we will be graduating our third cohort, and that will bring us to almost 75 students who have gone through this program to learn more about policymaking, especially through a racial equity lens, and learning about the budget, how we bring in money, where our revenue comes from, and then how we use that revenue to support this incredible county. And so that was my first priority. Um, the first piece of legislation I passed, I mentioned I came to Montgomery County as a single mom. I lived in affordable housing. And I want to make sure that whether you're a renter, you are a first-time home buyer, you have an opportunity to create pathways to um, ensure the best outcome in your life. And so the most basic need that must be met is shelter. And so I passed the OPEN Act. It was the Opening Pathways to Economic Necessity. And so usually it takes about 2 years for developers to build homes in Montgomery County. We currently have a 30,000 unit supply shortage just in Montgomery County. And so we're not building homes fast enough, and that decreases competition and then increases the cost because supply is so low. So my piece of legislation accelerates the timeline for building homes, cuts that 2-year timeline into 3 months, as long as the developer provides at least 30% of the area median income of the units have to be affordable. And so we are really excited that we have our first project underway. And the developer is already talking about savings upwards of $6 million. And so those savings are going to, trickle down to our residents. And so I'm very excited about that. We also passed a rent stabilization. We know that during the pandemic, rents were so unpredictable. Landlords weren't sure if people were going to be able to pay their rents because of unemployment rising. And so being able to provide a sense of predictability for our renters, our landlords, the same predictability that I value as a homeowner, we're now able to give that to our residents. Rent cannot be raised in Montgomery County over 3% unless there's a mitigating circumstance. The landlord has a repair that needs to be done or some sort of capital improvement that costs a significant amount, and he would have to request a waiver, and then the cap would increase up to 6%. So we're excited about that. I serve on the Health and Human Services Committee and the newly created Economic Development Committee. So I get to make policy that ensures the health and wellness of our community and also the economic vitality and vibrancy of our community as well. And so I'm really proud of the initiatives that we've been able to support to ensure that our minority populations through our Latino Health Initiative, our Asian American Health Program, and our African American Health Program. We're all fully funded to meet the needs, the unique, culturally competent needs of our diverse community. We also supported the continuation of the Minority, Female, and Disabled Owned Program in the Office of Procurement. We know that the county spends upwards of $1 billion on contracts to different businesses. We want to make sure that the businesses in our community, especially those who have been disadvantaged, have an opportunity to compete with the more seasoned businesses. This spring, we are still awaiting the release of the disparity study to really understand how the businesses of color have been impacted in this community, and also recommendations to ensure that we continue to make progress on how competitive they can become. We also know that financial circumstances haven't improved for everyone in our community equitably. And so programs like Universal Basic Income, we piloted that program 2 years ago, and we have funded its continuation. And we're also supporting minority businesses through our new jobs initiative. We have so many great things happening. We
Amazing.
also want to ensure that we have safe and vibrant communities. And so really glad that we have supported a drone program that's doing really well down county in Silver Spring, and it's now expanded up county because we have a shortage of public safety officers. And we're also making increased investments in after-school programs to ensure that our students actually have quality programs and experiences to keep them out of trouble. And then I'll finalize the education aspect. Our education system currently comprises 50% of our $6.5 billion budget. And so we're trying to ensure that the place where our students spend a majority of their time are now creating, we're now creating community hubs to
Mm.
facilitate mental health programs and resources, primary care visits and resources, and not just for the students, but also for their families. And so we are seeing a shortage of healthcare workers. And so we're hoping that through this initiative, we'll also be able to increase the amount of healthcare workers in a pipeline to support their continued education through Montgomery College or the universities at Shady Grove. And so our schools are going to become even more important in our community. So.
Wow, I am just so impacted by everything you just shared. So, at first, I just want to thank you for taking your time with that answer, because I think it's going to give the viewers of this recording just a little window into the depth of the work that's being done in our county by wonderful representatives like yourself. So, thank you so much for all the work that you are doing. I think I'm just going to be shown on this recording with a huge smile during most of it, because I'm just so proud of you and the work that you are doing. So just want to thank you again, Councilmember Sayles, for your comments today. You have definitely encouraged me. And so I know that your words are going to inspire anyone who views this recording. I want to let you know, at the Resurrection Baptist Church in Silver Spring, Maryland, we will be praying for you and all the work that you are doing. We will be praying for your daughter and your household. So thank you so much for your efforts. And on behalf of the Resurrection Baptist Church and the larger surrounding community, again, I just want to extend my heartfelt gratitude. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course, thank you so much. And if anyone has any follow-up questions, concerns, or ideas, this is your council. I'm your council member. I work for you. So please don't hesitate to call on me if I can be of service.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
So thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.